Is there a way to raise the volume so on?
All right. So have learned. So, and on the bottom, let me show, and then what you're seeing on your screen, I'm a little bit under the weather, as you can hear. What you're seeing on your screen, on the bottom left-hand corner is the chat room, and to the right in the chat room is information.
Oh, actually, the volume is from this this laptop. So this is the maximum volume. Can you hear, or it's a little bit difficult?
It's a little better what you just did.
Oh, okay. So let's just see. Oh, let me do this way. Volume.
Refresh your page, and if that doesn't work, try closing it and opening it up again. And if that doesn't work, you need to like Alright, so here you notice we do have distance learning courses, things or courses that you can learn on your own time and earn CEUs. And we have videos, audios, and articles. We also have Article Pass membership, and this is the best. I feel, and it's because you can have all our online courses, which means you can earn a ton of CEUs, as many as your heart desires. And we have a bunch of videos that Krishna released one. Thanks to his family and giving one allowing us to do so that we preserve his legacy. Okay, so today's class is an intro to Dr. Khan's
Better?
for trauma and sports injuries.
It's still pretty low.
Profession as he developed the balance quiz, which is a sequence of acupuncture systems based on the concept of balancing meridians to heal the body. The balance method is synonymous to instant clinical efficacy and is based on traditional Chinese medicine meridian theory arising from I Ching. We have been very fortunate to have been given this opportunity from his family to preserve his teaching and help carry on his legacy as he wished. Alright, so once again, the video does not show the overhead. We're not able to move it because it was recorded back in 2010. But I will help take on notes, and hopefully it will all go great. And he really does dictate what he writes, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
Like to ask again, how many of you are So we can't really hear that.
Oh, okay.
What I was supposed to teach is using my balance method to treat a trauma and injury. And of course, a lot of times the injury is not from school.
Let's try.
So it can be from nerve, from whatever. So mainly we're going to focus on trauma. Acupuncture just by physics. As a matter of fact, if you have the logical thinking, follow the 3 steps. You can not only just pain and trauma and injury, but also generation to pain and disorders. You just have to have a system. The reason I like to emphasize this is because a lot of acupuncturists have to take out of the license, and when they start practicing, they kind of get lost. They don't have a system, a logical system to follow to practice. So in their mind, everything is like random in the mind to do acupuncture. So everybody is different ways. Acupuncturists like to learn what point to treat what. What point to
It's
treat
better?
a ankle.
It's the same?
So much better.
Okay, good, good.
What point to treat
Okay, so let me play again, if you guys don't mind.
What point to treat an ankle in.
Okay.
Alright. Yeah, so I have an idea, you know, how fast.
I think that's because it's just
Concept
intro.
of balancing meridians to heal the body. The balance method is synonymous to instant clinical efficacy and is based on traditional Chinese medicine meridian theory arising from I
We
Ching.
can actually fast
We have been
forward
very
'cause we don't
fortunate
wanna
to
listen
be
this intro.
to have been given this opportunity from his
Fast
family to
forward.
preserve his teaching and help carry on his legacy as he has wished.
We all know.
All right, so
The
once
balance
again,
method?
the
know
video
balance
does
method.
not show the overhead. We're not able to move it because it was recorded back in 2010. But I will help take on notes and hopefully it will all go great. And he really does dictate what he writes, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
I'd like to ask again,
I saw
how
him
many
in
of you
person.
the first time in my class?
So 2009, after I graduated.
How many of you more than
He
5?
passed away last year.
More than
This is
10?
So I worked in the level.
Yeah, so I have an idea, you know, how
Albert
fast
knows
what we
balancing.
should cover. I believe what I'm supposed to teach is using my balance method to treat a trauma and injury, right? Like a sports injury. And of course, a lot of times the injury is not from sport. It can be from work or from whatever. So mainly we're going to focus on how to treat a trauma and injury. And I'd like to very fast, okay, to review how do we do acupuncture. For the new people, I have to emphasize, okay, every time when I ask you how do we do acupuncture, you should answer me and reply back, say 1, 2, 3. Because I simplified the 5,000 years of the information to do acupuncture just by 3 steps. As a matter of fact, if you have the logical thinking, follow the 3 steps, you can treat anything, not only just pain and trauma and injury, but also treat very complicated internal disorders. You just have to have a system to follow. The reason I like to emphasize this is because, I found out a lot of acupuncturists after they got the license, and when they started practicing, they kind of get lost. But they don't have a system, a logical system to follow to practice acupuncture. So in their mind, everything is like random in the mind, right, to do acupuncture. So everybody in school, I think they learned in a different ways. People as an acupuncturist like to learn what point treat what. What point to treat a migraine? What point to treat a shoulder pain? What point to treat a irritable bowel syndrome? What point to treat an ankle pain? And to be honest with you, to me, that is a very bad thinking, very useless, bad habit. Because when you do acupuncture, you don't learn that way. Acupuncture medicine itself is very, very logical. And if you follow the logical step, easily to come up with the most effective strategy to treat any problems. Some people may be asking me, what do you mean by effective strategy? My answer is very simple. It's called, in Chinese, we call the Li Gan Jian Ying, right? In Chinese character, when you write that character, and maybe you can see that sometimes on my flyer, I like to use this 4 character, Li Gan Jian Ying. The pronunciation is called Li Gan Jian Ying. And this is the 4 characters, okay, they used a lot in classical acupuncture books. We call it traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, they describe acupuncture should work the effectiveness like the Li Gan Jian Ying. What does that really mean? Li means you stand. Gan means a pole. Jian means you see. Ying means a shadow. The 4 characters put together become an idiom, become a sentence in Chinese language. That's how you learn the Chinese stuff, because you picture. The picture, what does that mean? You stand the pole, you see shadow. That means, acupuncture, the effectiveness supposed to be like you stand at a pole under the sun or under any light, you see the shadow. That's how fast acupuncture works. And for those people first time exposed to my method, I have to ask you to ask yourself, when you practice acupuncture, do you see this on every single case when you treat? If you never, in your practice, you never, or you not often see every time you put the needles in, the patient should respond positively, like see the pole under the sun and you see the shadow. If they don't get immediate result, I'm very sorry I have to say, you miss out such a big fun being an acupuncturist. You really miss out practicing acupuncture, because this is the Chinese book they promise you. When you do acupuncture in the correct way, you ought to get the immediate result. If you don't, I'm sorry, again, I have to say, you miss out the fun practicing acupuncture. And that's why I come out and teach, and been teaching this method for more than 16 years. And keep on going, because I find out many acupuncturists, after they were licensed, when they practice acupuncture, all they do is a whole bunch of memorization. What point can treat what condition? What point to treat a PMS, for example? And they put the needles in, and people are having cramp on the table. And put the needles in, and every time they put the needles in, they turn around and pray. Okay? So this patient is OBGYN-MD. My goodness, I have to make it work. So hopefully she can recommend or refer more patients to me. So people think about this very important patient. So in order to make it work, they put the needles in, turn around and pray. And to be honest with you, in order to make acupuncture work, you don't have to pray. I'm not against the religion. I believe in God. But again, God is too busy. There's 6 billion people on the earth he need to take care, right? So that's why sometimes even you pray so hard, it still doesn't see Li Kuan changing. Because I believe the nature also for the God already set up a very easy to follow logical rule. If you follow the logical rule, you put the needles in, you will Li Kuan changing. So maybe you follow the rule which is set up by the universal rule. Instead of every individual treatment, you turn around and pray. Okay? Even your email. Okay? I think it's hard to get a response. Now, what is the logic of the acupuncture rule? 1, 2, 3. No matter you treat a trauma, you treat the internal disorders or anything. So what is step 1? Diagnose. Any medicine you practice, step 1 always is diagnose. Why do we need a diagnose? So that we can have a logical strategy to follow, to get rid of the problem, to help the patient. But here I need to emphasize one thing. How do you diagnose? You diagnose in acupuncture way. And that is the missing link in the Western TCM education. Because I found out many people, they didn't really learn the acupuncture way of diagnosis. So their diagnosis, they are following the non-acupuncture way. Most of the people learn are the herbal medicine way. So what is the real acupuncture diagnosis? You identify the 6 meridians, identify the affect meridians. That's what acupuncture is all about. You diagnose by acupuncture terminology, by acupuncture aid. You identify the 6 affect meridians. Why I put the S there? Because many times the 6 meridian is more than 1. It could involve in more than 1 meridian. You need to identify all of them. If you overlook any of them, your effectiveness won't be as announcing. That's why diagnosis is important, and you need to cover all the affected meridians. Many times in real case, they are more than one. So that's step one. In today's lecture, we're going through a lot of real cases. From those cases, you will see, right? How do we follow a correct acupuncture diagnosis? Right? Step number two, find a balance. This is what the spirit of the balance method. When you see the 6 meridians, you pick a balancing meridian, which is the meridian, sometimes more than one meridian again. You might need to choose more than one meridian. They are called balancing meridian. And those are the meridians you are ready to insert the needles. Insert into the balancing meridians to treat the 6 meridians. So this is another step following step one. Pick the balancing meridians. And there are different ways to pick up the meridians. And that's in your handout from system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Actually, we have system 6 also. System 6 is you just treat the same meridian, which are the 6 meridians, but you just don't necessarily use the local points. When we say local points, means, if you're headache, you don't need to put any single needle in the head. When you have a lower back pain, you don't need to put any single needle in the lower back. In my 30 years of practicing, I don't put any single needle where it hurts. And that's another beauty of this balance method. Why it's beautiful? Very simple. Because if you have the pain in somewhere, you put the needles in where the pain is. Probably it's hard for you to enjoy and detect the Ligan-Zhen-Yin. What is Ligan-Zhen-Yin again? Immediate result. For example, if you have a shoulder pain, you put a bunch of needle around the shoulder. How can you tell the patient is getting immediate relief? Because of the needles in there, there is some sensation there. It's hard for you to detect. On the other hand, if you avoid to put any single needle in anywhere it hurts, then you can detect whether the patient is getting the immediate result, right? So step number 2, to find a balance. Right? To treat a trauma or injury, when you choose the balancing meridians, right, you follow the same 5 systems. There's no difference. Number 1 system is, we call it the Chinese meridian name sharing systems. What that really means, anywhere, right? If the problem you diagnose by the meridians, you choose the same Chinese anatomic name meridian to balance the 6 meridian. For example, if your diagnosis of certain problem is a foot Yangming meridian, that's a problem. You can choose the hand Yangming to balance it. Anything, if it's a hand Tai Yin, have a problem, you can choose the foot Tai Yin. Okay, so that's the system number 1. In the examples, in the cases, you will see how do we use a clinic. System number 2, we are having the relationship between the Tai Yin and Tai Yang, Shao Yin and Shao Yang, and Jue Yin and Yang Yin. I repeat, Tai Yin with Tai Yang, Shao Yin with Shao Yang. That's why you need to learn the Chinese terms. Right? Tai balance Tai, Shao balance Shao. imbalanced yang. That's how you memorize system 2. And then the last pair, the leftover is Jue Yin and Yang Ming. They balance each other. System 3, everybody are familiar with. It's called a Biao-Li relationship. I know many of you already passed your license test for years. You probably already forgot what a Biao-Li means. Right? Biao-Li means the exterior-interior yin-yang relationship. I'd like to take you to recall and review. For example, liver balance with gallbladder, stomach balance with spleen, small intestine balance with heart. That's a yin-yang balance. Right? That's a system 3. System 4, we use the Chinese clock relationship. And I know many of you, after you pass the license test, you totally trash the Chinese clock or delete it from your memory. And you think that that's a torture when you prepare the licensure test. Actually, this is the one of the treasury in acupuncture practice. Any two meridians, they situate or locate on the opposite side of the Chinese clock. They balance each other. They beautifully balance each other. They can treat each other by that relationship in order to get immediate result. And I know the first timer here, you have a very reasonable doubt. You always question and suspicion and suspect when I say immediate result, is that really true? I'm going to demo that by the end of today's class to you in front of your eyes. I really say what I mean, and it's the fact. If you follow the balancing thinking, you will see immediate result in front of your eyes. Right? All right. System number 5, we do the Chinese clock 2. But instead of do the opposite side of the Chinese clock, we do the neighbor relationship. We pair the yin meridian with yin, yang meridian with yang, if they are located at the neighbor on the Chinese clock. They balance each other. In system 6, it's not necessarily listed in the handout or your book, but we call it the same meridian balance. Again, you can penetrate gallbladder, treat a gallbladder problem. Liver meridian, treat a liver problem. Stomach, treat a stomach. But you don't use the local area points at all. So this is step number 2 in the logic 1, 2, 3. I review again. How do you do acupuncture? 1, 2, 3. Step 1, diagnose in acupuncture way. Step 2, you do the balance. Step 3, the final step, you choose the points. You choose the points following step number 2. Once you decide and select the balancing meridians, then you ask yourself where I'm going to put the needles in the balancing meridian to treat the patient to get rid of the problem. So acupuncture learning is not anything you learn what point to treat what problem. You follow the logical step to the last step, step number 3, and based on the decision you made in step 2, then you say what points I'm going to choose. There are different ways to the point location. Okay? Number 1, we call it and image. Number two, in my teaching, in my curriculum of teaching, we have a background method. Okay, it's from the concept of the I Ching. That's why we use the background, the eight different combination of the 3 lines. We call it trigram, right? Background. And in the background, at number 1, we can do the meridian conversion. Number 2, we choose a seasonal. Number 3 is my invention. It's my method of 5 elements. This is the way you choose the acupuncture treatment points following the background. Right? Number 3, we do special treatment. Okay, number 1 way we do under the special treatment is all my different magical points. Actually, it's a strategy, okay? Magical points of different strategy. One of the most popular use are the 8 magic and 12 magic, and I have a book selling in the back, and that is 12 magic. Okay? And then here is my recent research. Okay? In the past 10 years, it's called the Bazi method. What is Bazi method? It's following the patient's data of birth. It means the time of the patient's birth, the day, the month, and the year. And from there, you can have a constitution structure of the patient, and then you select the treatment points. And I started teaching this in the last year, right? And also teach the son this year. And if you come to my website, you can find out I'm very much in teaching this new method, which I discovered very useful, right? And that has been my strategy and my research in the past 10 years. And now it's the mature time to share with our acupuncture community. Today, in order to treat the injury and trauma, we're going to focus on the method number 1 to do the treatment strategy of the selection of the points. We're going to follow the mirror and image concept. What is the mirror? Mirror is a mapping relationship between the upper limb and the lower limb. So in trauma and injury, a lot of times the problem happens in the limbs. That means upper limbs or lower limbs. And there is a mapping relationship there. And that helps us to decide what points we're going to use. What are the mirror relationships? Very simple. The finger map the toes. Just picture it, okay? I know the Western people, when they learn things, they'll always like to think and memorize in a linear way. But I really suggest you do the picture, right? The image itself. The mirror is imaging or mirroring the toes. The hand mirror the foot. The ankle mirror the wrist. The forearm mirror the lower leg. The elbow mirror the knees. You just follow it from the distal to proximal and picture then that's how you see it. Upper leg mirror the upper arm, and the hip mirror the shoulder. This is a mirror concept. I just created a different terminology so we won't have a confusion. What is the image? The image is the limb map the body with the head. So when we use the terminology, use the terms image, means the relationship between the limb and the head and the torso. I bet you've been watching puppy shows when you were little. That's the imaging concept. See the puppy show? Right? Hello, good morning. How's everybody? Right? You have a good time? This is the image, right? This is the head. And you can nod head. You can see each other, right? You can shake your head. So the hand is the image of the head. The elbow is the navel level. The shoulder is the hip or genital area. So this is the puppy. So there's no lower limb, upper limb involved. Just the upper limb to picture the head and the torso. That's the relationship of the image. So where is the neck? Can you picture this and tell me where is the neck? The wrist. Did you see the picture? This is the neck, right? And this is elbow, is a navel line, right? So this is what the image means. It's by the proportion. There's no one-on-one relationship of the image. For example, if you ask me on this puppy show here, where is the nipple? I cannot answer you because it depends on which meridian you are talking about. Nipple by proportion is halfway from the neck to the navel line. For most people, okay? The nipple line from the neck down to the navel is halfway. So on each meridian, the halfway, it could be the nipple. So when you learn the image things, don't learn it one-on-one, point-to-point relationship, please. You learn and understand it by the position of the proportion. On the hand Yangming large intestine, the nipple line is right on the Yangming line, is in between the large intestine 6 to large intestine 7 or 8. And that's the nipple point. For the pericardial line, the nipple is in between the pericardium 4 and 3. You see that? That's how you learn the image. Again, I repeat, there's no one-on-one point relationship. But you are more focused on each different meridian. After you select the meridian from step 2, then you can look for on that meridian, where is the possibility location of the nipple. Okay? So this is one important thing. I know some of the old students, sometimes you got confused because you try to seek for the point-to-point relationship. Quit that, right? The correct way is you decide the meridian first, all right? So this is the image. The other thing is for the lower limb, you can image the same way. Where is the head if you look at the lower limb? The foot. Where is the neck again? The ankle. Where is from the neck to the navel? It's from the ankle to the knee. It is similar to the upper limb. The knee line is what? Is the navel line. Where is the lower abdomen to the genital? It's from the knee to the hip joint, right? Proportion again. Everything you look at it, proportion, right? That's how you look at it, right? Again, the foot is the head. Picture. When you learn Chinese stuff, always think about picture, right? Because this is all the Chinese stuff, in the history, how people present idea, all in picture. Even Chinese written language, they are all picture. Every single character is a picture, okay? So you learn the Chinese stuff, you think in the Chinese way, right? Again, the knee is the navel line by proportion, okay? So where the nipple again? Any possible meridian you choose in between the ankle and the knee, that's the nipple point, okay? Yeah. All right, give you the concept now. We're going to go real case. Patient come into your office and knock at your door in the morning. And you open the door and then you see a stranger show up, a nice young lady, and say, I sprained my ankle from last night, went to salsa bar. Right? After a shot of the, how do you call that, tequila, okay? And I started getting into the dancing mood, and I dance and keep on drinking tequila. Right, until 2 o'clock in the morning. And I went home. I feel so happy until 7 o'clock. After 7 o'clock, I'm unhappy. Why? Because my right ankle hurt. My right ankle hurt. So I saw your sign right there, your acupuncturist. So I come in the morning, I wait until I saw your door open. So I knock at your door and come to you. And ladies and gentlemen, if your patient like that showing up at your clinic with no appointment, are you going to take the patient? I think many people not yet. Some people still wonder, should I take the patient? Come on, this is a bad economy time. Okay? You take any patient showing up any time. But after patient say, I sprained my ankle last night from salsa dancing all night long. Are you going to treat the patient? I know some people say, no, I'm higher class acupuncturist. I only treat the spiritual, constitutional problems. I don't treat the symptomatic pain, right? I heard that kind of acupuncturist, right? We only treat the constitutional, spiritual things. Right? But again, come on, this is a bad economy time. You should treat anything. Don't be so picky. Right? Now you decide to treat a patient, even you don't have appointment. I'm going to treat you to help you sprain the ankle. As an acupuncturist, what you do? What should you do when your patient show up like that? Yes, I want you to answer 1, 2, 3. Can you do that with me again? 1, 2, 3. Don't think this silly. I hope this will be in your heart for the rest of your life. Anytime any patient come in, any case show up, all you think is 1 and 2 and 3. You won't miss the fun practicing acupuncture. What is the fun again? Yes, but what is the fun of practicing acupuncture? Immediate result. I know you, many of you say, you must be kidding. 1, 2, 3 give immediate result? I'll prove it to you in the afternoon. What? Again, step 1, what is it? Diagnose. How do you diagnose this patient? Take the pulse, look at the tongue, create a Zhangfu diagnosis which you don't even believe yourself. Spleen qi deficiency. That's what you do as an acupuncturist. People come in and say, I couldn't walk straight, okay? I'm limping from last night, social dancing. What you do, first step, diagnose, right? Take the pulse, look at the tongue, spleen qi deficiency. I'm not against the spleen qi deficiency diagnosis at all. I use those diagnoses. Don't make it wrong. But again, when do I use that kind of diagnosis? When I want to do herbal prescription. When you do acupuncture, you give a Zhangfu diagnosis. Let me ask you, how do you logically decide which point you're going to use to treat this problem from herbal diagnosis? There's no such logic. Have you ever seen any logic from a spleen qi deficiency come to the point you're going to choose? They just list the point. Do they have a theory support the logic? If you have a diagnosis from Zhangfu, come up with the treatment point. Here, we're going to learn a completely new concept. We are going to use the acupuncture diagnosis and come to the point and give the immediate result. So for ankle pain, you need to identify the 6 meridians. Number 1 important concept. Western diagnosis called what? Sprain or strain of the ankle. Depend on you have a tear of the soft tissue or not, right? But again, how do you treat an ankle sprain? What point you treat ankle sprain? Put the 50 needles in the ankle? If you do that, you choose to do that, I guarantee you, you have to pray, right? So step 1 is what? Identify which 6 meridian involved in the ankle. Simple. That's an acupuncture diagnosis based on what? Chinese anatomy. That's it. What is Chinese anatomy? You forgot because you've been licensed for too long. What is the Chinese anatomy? Yin yang, period. On human being's body, what is yin? What is yang? You still remember? Yang in Chinese means what? The sun, the taiyang. Chinese call the sun taiyang, the greater yang. So on the human being's body, what is yang? On the body, especially in the forelimbs area. Any area of the body exposed to the sun more, we call it a yang side. Simple. Everything is logic in Chinese medicine. Right? What is yin? on the body anatomically if exposed to the sun less. That is what yin. So how do you identify yin yang on the four limbs? Very simple. So pull out your limb and take your clothes off. When you see the skin color is lighter, that's yin in comparison. When you see the skin color is darker, that is yang. Simple. So in order to really remember it, simple logic, the dark meat is yang side. The white meat is what? Inside. It's anatomy. How many meridian in yang side? Yang side. You forgot? 3. How many meridian inside? 3. Who are the yang meridians? I know you start thinking Zhang Fu again. My God, yang meridian. Gallbladder, bladder, stomach, right? Large intestine, Sanjiao, gallbladder. Oh, shoot, I did say gallbladder, okay? Where's the missing one? My God. Oh, I didn't cover small intestine, right? Finally, you figured out. That's how you do acupuncture. Very simple. Yang side of what? Tai yang, Shao yang, yang ming. What is inside? Tai yin, Jue yin, Shao yin. You think the Chinese are so stupid, create those names for nothing? I know many of you got so mad when you prepare an exam, right? Why I have to memorize the Yin, the Yang Ming is the large intestine. And the foot Shao Yang is gallbladder. That's so stupid. Why don't we just use the Zhang Fu name and we have to use those stupid Chinese name? But I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Chinese look stupid like me. They're not that dumb. Okay? There is a very important reason why they create those names. It's an anatomical position name. What yang ming means on the yang side. Yang ming means it's a dark skin side. It's the yang side front. That's what yang ming means. What is Shao Yang? It's in the lateral part. What is Tai Yang? It's on the dark skin and backside. That's what Tai Yang means. Because on the human being's body, the back is darker than the front. So Tai Yang means what? Very young, extreme young, major young. So double young on the back. It's a dark skin, also this in the back side of the body. They call it Tai Yang. Double young, chocolate chips. Right? That's Tai Yang. So what is Tai Yin? Lighter skin part of the body, right? But also in the front. That's what Tai Yin means. What is Shao Yin? Lighter skin in the back. Okay? What is the Jue Yin? In between. It's a medial yin. So ladies and gentlemen, as an acupuncturist, you should know this by heart. 16 years ago, I found out a lot of acupuncturists, they don't have that in their mind, in their heart at all. That's why I couldn't stand it anymore. That's why I jumped out of the closet and started teaching. Right? I repeat, what is Yang Ming? frontal yang? What is Tai yang? Back yang? What is Shao yang? In between, lateral yang. What is Tai in? Frontal in. What is Shao in? Back in. What is Jue in between? This is the golden rules for acupuncture to follow to do the correct diagnosis. Actually, in my clinic, all my staff got well trained. Trained in what? Answering the phone. I have people call my office from all over the world every day. Dr. Tan, do you know so-and-so in this town practicing your method? I'm going to refer my friend or my relative to get treatment. Unfortunately, on my referral list, we couldn't cover everywhere in the world. Some town or very small town, I didn't know. So my staff always got well trained. It's okay, it's not, we don't have that on our data. Then you can call the acupuncturist to find out are they good acupuncturists or not. And the other party always reply, how do we know it's a good acupuncturist or not? Should we just find somebody Chinese? My staff always reply, no. People have a misunderstanding. They think the Chinese acupuncturist should be the better. Okay? But my staff, unfortunately, say they always say no. Because that's not the truth. And then the other party asks, how do we find a good acupuncturist anyway? My staff were trained by me. They always said, you ask the patient, how many meridians go through the ankle? You got it? You want to find a good acupuncturist? You ask the acupuncturist, how many meridians go through the ankle? If the acupuncturist say, well, click. Don't waste your time. I'm sorry, if you're licensed acupuncture, you have to think about how many meridians go through the ankle. Hello, where have you been? That's a basic knowledge acupuncture should have. Well, how many meridians go through the ankle? 6. That's a magical number for acupuncturists. Who are they? Liver, stomach, spleen, oh shoot, right? And you count the 6, Who are they again? 3 yang, 3 yin period. Tai yang, yang ning, shao yang. Tai yin, jue yin, shao yin period. That's the secret and key to practice acupuncture to get effectiveness, Li Gan Jian. What is Li Gan Jian again? Immediate result.
All right, guys, that's the end of the clip. I hope you enjoyed it. We are having the full day class next Sunday, so we do hope that you join us. We do have a promotion going on right now to register for the class for free, and you can watch the live event, which is when we're going to be airing the class on Sunday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Check.
Do you have any preference?
Does anyone have a preference?
So
Let's look at our choices.
how to show the
I just don't want to be berated by an old man anymore.
Yep, I agree.
Do you want the top
I agree.
videos?
We've done that one already.
So what is the best one? Do you have any? How to choose?
Let's just look.
Master Tone plus all free videos.
Master Tone points for headaches.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So 10.
Matthew, are you familiar with Master Tom points?
Somewhat. I'm more familiar with the tan style. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I could always use a refresher.
And Albert, you
Okay.
practice a lot of Master Tong, right?
Somewhat here and there. It depends on what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just don't feel like. I remember one teacher said, you know, if the baby's crying, don't smack the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So when a person is a really acute situation, I don't want to stick needles in there. I do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try and get Dr. Cord here to go through all the Master Tom points.
Mm-hmm. Any preference? What do you wanna? Auricular or 7 emotion, blood letting?
I thought that the
body
Master
lab?
Tom for headaches is good.
Oh, okay. It was okay. Previous page.
I like I don't know if he's got any free videos, but Brad Wisnant is
He is
I
so
like him because he's you know, he just speaks easy.
he is awesome. I've seen him in Brad, Sam. I don't know if there is any. Can we do a search?
What is his name?
Brad, BRAD, WHIS. You may have to space.
Brad is WHIS
WHIANT.
ANT.
He is so good. I took 2 or maybe even 3 of his Master Tong classes through eLotus.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, doesn't.
Brad.
Oh, well.
Oh, you know, I think he's doing his own CEUs now. That's probably why.
All right, let's just go back to the headache, Master Tong headache. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lecture note too. Have to open. Let's see. This one.
Nice.
Okay.
But we can't do 2 at the same time.
We
I don't
cannot.
think so.
This is a lecture. I think we need to just watch in video because you
Because his lecture notes will be on the video.
yeah, right.
I hope. But if not, then anyway, we can all download. 2015.
All right, before we begin, let's go ahead and do a quick testing so we make sure that everyone can hear us here. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3. We good? Okay, our tech has confirmed that both audio and video are good. Good morning, everyone. I am Donna Chow, your host and moderator for today's class. Welcome to our eLotus webinar, the #1 online CEU platform for acupuncturists. If you're here looking to learn stuff that actually work in the clinic, then you've come to the right place. And to help you do that, one of the things that we have here is the first one, our webinar weekdays. Webinar weekdays are 1-hour webinars that we hold on a weekly basis. These are free for you to attend, and each week we have someone different. So you can check our schedule to see what's coming up. And if for any reason you're not able to make it, you can definitely catch it on our TCM Wisdom Tube. It's also free to watch, and the videos become available the next business day. And starting today, we're going to do a little bit something different. We're going to ask the speaker 3 important questions that are relevant to building a successful practice. So something that their go-to point, stuff like that. So stay tuned until the end of the webinar to find out what those answers are. And this webinar is brought to you by Evergreen Herbs. Evergreen provides the highest quality herbal extracts that are safe and effective. To learn about Evergreen Herbs or to get started on an account, please visit www.evherbs.com. All right, guys, today's Today's speaker is Dr. Henry McCain, the author and co-author of the Doong book, Pricking the Vessels, Bloodletting Therapy, and Practical Atlas of Doong's Acupuncture. Dr. McCain is also a faculty member of PCOM in New York, and also teaches the doctoral degree programs at Oregon State, Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Yes, I'm fumbling because Dr. McCain is making me so nervous here. I'm so excited to have you join us as everyone else. It is a pleasure to have you join us today. So let's go ahead and give a warm welcome to Dr. McCain. And if you're able to do a quick testing on your end so we make sure we hear you.
Okay, sure. This is me doing a quick test. See if you can hear my audio. Everyone can hear me okay? Okay. Thank you, Donna. Thank you very much to Lotus Institute for inviting me for this chat. For the next hour, we'll be talking about specifically the topic of the Doong lineage points for headaches. And we will go through a couple of basic case studies to illustrate commonly used points, at least points that I commonly use in the clinic. We will then also use the opportunity to go into some very basic concepts that are core, I believe, to help understand the Doong lineage of acupuncture in general. I will try to leave some time for questions, specifically near the end of the talk. And if something does come up, eventually you can type it into the chat box there. I may or may not necessarily see questions as we're going through as I'm talking. So if I miss something, then we'll come back to it. Although if there is a question that comes up, you can try typing it into the chat box and I'll see if we can address it as we go through. Thank you so much for everyone also who is attending. It looks like there are quite a number of people from all over the world, which is always great, fun and exciting. There are some people who I know out there, so a special warm welcome to you who I've met in person before or who I work with in person. Bud, hello, how are you? Those folks in New Jersey, also a very warm welcome. Okay, so first let's just delve into a short case study. The case studies, I think, are some of the best things we can do to illustrate some of the concepts. So this is a case study that, and all the case studies, by the way, we're going to be going over for the next hour or so are case studies that are relatively recent in my clinic. So these are people who I am seeing or who I have seen recently. Certainly they are shortened a bit just for the sake of ease of presentation, but they're definitely current cases that we're actually working with as live patients. So this first case study is a trigeminal neuralgia diagnosis. This is an 82-year-old female who has chronic pain on the right side of the face. And often it flares occasionally, as not uncommon with trigeminal neuralgia. She's on low-level steroid medication, and so that's keeping her mostly in check, that in combination with acupuncture. When she has pain, the majority of the pain is located on the side of the face. It can range from the area of the Taiyang point, that's MHN9, the extra point Taiyang, into the lateral corner of the nose, really along the area of Yingxiang, large intestine 20, sometimes down around the side of the face and along the jawline. So this is important for us to keep in mind for a number of reasons. One of the things we'll see in Doong's acupuncture is that we are using concepts of channel relationships to determine what points will be successful in treating certain pain patients, especially in pain patients. So the main points for this patient is first the point Lingu, which is number 22.05, and I'll explain what those numbers mean shortly. And then Lingu is done usually bilaterally. And then we do the points Sasanli and Sashasanli, which are points 77.22 and 77.23. So let's just talk a little bit about those points, what they do, how they potentially may act, and then we'll use that as a jumping off point to look at some basic theory. So Lingu is located on the dorsum of the hand, And it's basically in the area of large intestine 4, as far back as we can go to the bony junction of the metacarpals. And what I'm going to do is just skip ahead to the diagram, then we'll come back to the description for just a second. So here's the diagram. Lingu is this point. You can see, I think you can see where my arrow is. The arrow is pointing to that area right there at the bony junction. This is on the dorsum of the hand, in this space where large intestine 4 would be found, right? So Lingu is a very commonly used point in Dong's acupuncture, and it's arguably one of the most famous points in the Dong lineage of acupuncture. So this is located on the large intestine channel. That's going to be important. And keep in mind that the large intestine channel is the Han Yangming channel. It's also going to be important. I would argue, as an acupuncturist, knowing that the channel is called the Han Yangming is more important than knowing that the channel is called the large intestine channel. And we'll see how that comes into play eventually. So the function of the point is that it helps free the channels and quicken the network vessels. The network vessels are the low vessels, so it means it also has a somewhat of a blood quickening or blood moving effect. That's the function that's important to us for the context of today's lecture. And we'll see in the list of indications that there are a lot of pain indications. So we see migraine, we see low back pain, we see sciatica, we see it used for facial paralysis, it can be used for hemiplegia. So this is a major point that we use for head pain. We use for constrained qi and blood in the area of the head and the face. Okay. So the point is needled, can be needled fairly deeply. We'll see that the needle depth is 0.5 to Tutsun perpendicular insertion. My recommendation is that the point is inserted towards the thenar eminence. I know that there is some variability to how people recommend needling this point, but in my experience, especially getting the wider range of indications, my preference is to take the needle insert from the dorsal side towards the palmar side in the area of, for those of you who aren't familiar with the other Dong's points, in the area of UG lung 10. This point, like large intestine 4, is contraindicated during pregnancy. Right? It definitely has a decidedly moving effect, and it can induce movement of the fetus. So you don't want to do this during pregnancy. We'll come back to this diagram again shortly. The other points we used in this case for the trigeminal neuralgia are Tsesanli and Tseshasanli. So the names of these points, Tsesanli means beside or next to Sanli. And we know that Sanli is the Chinese name for stomach 36. So the reference point for locating these points is first locating stomach 36. Tsesanli, the upper of the two, the superior of the two, is 1.5 Tsun lateral to stomach 36. So let's just jump ahead to the diagram for a second. Diagram's a little small. Hopefully you can see it a little better in your handouts. But stomach 36 will be up here. Then we go 1.5 Tsun lateral to the area between the stomach channel and the gallbladder channel on the same parallel line as stomach 36 would be, and that is 77.22 Tsesanli. The second point is 2 Tsun distal to Tsesanli. I see the question, Michael, about the Weissman functions, and I'll come back to the functions in general in just a second, because it's an interesting question just in general. So the points are on a vertical line with each other, and so the points, the Tsesanli, and just straight down is Shasanli. These points, as we can see in the definition, are located between the stomach and gallbladder channels. And their main function is also to quicken blood and remove stasis. So they have also decidedly pain-stopping function. And the indications you'll see are mainly indications that relate specifically to the head, the face. So it treats trigeminal neuralgia, treats toothache, treats facial paralysis and headache. You can also use it for sinus problems. And so one of the key features of Dong's acupuncture that is important to note is that there is almost a complete lack of local needling. And so Dong's acupuncture typically uses points away from the site of disease and typically contralateral to the side of pain if pain is one-sided. If pain is bilateral, then we can certainly use points bilaterally. But if pain is unilateral, then typically we needle the main points, at least, are needled contralaterally. So in this patient, we'll go back just 1 second. Notice that the pain was worse on the right side of the face. And so the main treatment points in her case were really the left Sasanli and Sashasanli, and the lingu becomes an adjunct point. So the main points are opposite the side of pain. Typically, the way we stimulate or the way we achieve movement of qi and blood in the distal area where the pain is located is to do some gentle stimulation of the needles. We don't have to do super strong stimulation. Perhaps this is the influence of my Japanese acupuncture training early on. And then at the same time, we have the patient move the affected area. So this is very similar to those, for those of you who have maybe studied with people like Dr. Tan in the past, or people who have studied scalp acupuncture, where movement of the body becomes an essential way of bringing the function of the points to the target area that's diseased. So in this case, since the pain is on the face, we insert the first points we insert are Sasanli and Sashasanli, and we have her literally touch the face, massage the area where the pain is, or she can squint, move the face around. Moving the face and touching the face moves qi and blood in the face. We know that pain fundamentally is some sort of stagnation in the movement of qi and blood, which is why in Chinese we say bu tong zi tong, which is a play on words. I'm not sure if I can type in Chinese in the chat room, but let's find out. Tong zi tong. Looks like we can. So this is bu tong zi tong. When there's no movement, we have pain as a result. And then the treatment principle, of course, is to actually move the qi and blood, and then pain stops, pain goes away. Tong zi bu tong. So once we needle the points and we ask her to move the area or massage the area, oftentimes I'm looking for some immediate change in pain. And in this patient's case, even though this is a relatively chronic condition, pain usually goes away almost immediately upon needling those first points, Sasanli and Sashasanli, and then lingu is added as an adjunct to really just help focus the treatment on the face area. Now, a couple of other important points is that notice here, the area of pain is in the area of the side of the face. And the area of the side of the face where we're including points like Taiyang, points that are areas that are also next to the nose. This area next to the nose is defined by both the large intestine channel and under the eye by the stomach channel. Both of these channels are the Yangming channels. The side of the head, getting closer to the temple area and the point Taiyang, is the area of the Xiaoyang, this lateral aspect of the head. Notice that Sasanli and Sashasanli, both of these points are located in the vicinity of both the stomach and gallbladder channels. So we're actually in the area between the stomach and gallbladder channels. So we are between the leg Yangming and the leg Xiaoyang channels. When we have points in Dong's acupuncture that lie between channels, oftentimes these points have a function on both of those channels. Think of them, I like to tell people to think of them as watercolors, where if you have one color here and another color to the side of it, where the original paints are more pure colors, and then in between, the colors blend into each other. And so the points in the channels definitely have this sort of ability as well. I think we need to get rid of the idea that channels are just these fine little lines on the body. The channels have both width as well as depth. When it's closer to that main line, then it may be a stronger association with the channel itself. So when we're right on the stomach channel, we're really on the stomach channel. When we're getting next to the stomach channel, we're sort of blending towards the gallbladder channel. Then we finally get to the gallbladder channel, then we're actually on the gallbladder channel. So in between, we have this blending of colors, and so we have blending of functions for the channels. So the Sasanli and Sashasanli, because they're between the Yangming and Xiaoyang channels, they treat pain really very effectively on the side of the head that is defined by both the Yangming and the Xiaoyang channels. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Just another quick word about the points themselves. You will see that all of the points in the Dong lineage have a name in Chinese, and the name in Chinese is what I would actually suggest as a teacher. I suggest you try to learn these names, or at least learn the English translation of these names. I think it will help you immensely to know the name. After the name, we have a number. The number is a numbering system that it was developed for people who are primarily not speakers of Asian languages. So the 7-7 means that these points are found in zone 7, which is the lower leg. 0.22 and 0.23 simply means that these are the 22nd and 23rd points that Master Dong listed in his original book. There's no other real significance to the numbers, so don't get hung up on the numbers. If you'd like a better description of the zones in the body in Dong's acupuncture and the numbering system, I would suggest you can check out the book that I wrote with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Ross, The Practical Atlas of Dong's Acupuncture, which Evergreen does carry, which Lotus carries. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is how we get these ideas of points targeting certain areas of the body. So Sisanli, Sishasanli are between the Yangming and Xiaoyang channels, which means we can target the area of the Yangming and the Xiaoyang channels on the head. Lingu, remember, is located along the large intestine channel. And being along the large intestine channel, it can treat both its own channel, the large intestine distribution, as well as treat the Yangming distribution of the stomach channel as well. So Lingu treats both the area of large intestine and stomach channel on the face very effectively. And as an aside, while we're here, if, for example, this patient were to come in, and on certain times she has come in where the pain is not, it's a little more stubborn, it doesn't go away quite as quickly. When we have pain that's more stubborn and we find that maybe the first point doesn't get adequate pain management, so let's say we put in Sisanli and Sishasanli, and we put in Lingu, but then her pain only goes away about 50% or so. 50% may be good, but it's still, I'm a former high school teacher. I used to teach high school years ago. If my students came and they got a 50% on their exam, still a failing grade to me. So we need to get better than 50%. In addition to Lingu, we can add other points in the same vicinity of the hand, right? And so you'll see on this diagram that I have up here, we have 22.04 and another point called Zhonghui. 22.04 in Dong's acupuncture is called Dabai. Right, so that's Dabai. And 22.04 is an adjunct point that we can use in addition to Lingu to get stronger effect. This needling technique in Dong's acupuncture is called Dalma needling. Oops, sorry, that's a typo. Dalma. Okay. So Dalma needling is the use of 2 or 3 needles in a specific area along a channel pathway to strengthen treatment effect. And so here we can use 2 points. The location of Dabai, I have to say, is a bit controversial in the Dong lineage. And if you want to read more about the controversy over Dabai point location, I'd also point you towards our book. But we can add in 2 points in this space or even 3 points in this space to get an even stronger effect on the face. Together, this 3-point group is called the palm 3 needles, the Zheng, Sun, Zhen. The palm 3 needles. That's the combination of Lingu, Dabai, and Zhonghui. So moving on to the next topic, though, I'd like to take a quick look at this idea. One of the things I like to remind people is that a distal point is nothing more than a local point needled somewhere else. Okay, get that definition, basic definition of a distal or a distant point. A distant point is nothing more than a local point needled somewhere else. For example, if we're doing ear acupuncture and we want to stimulate the lungs, we needle a point called lungs. It's one of the possibilities. And all it does is a point on the ear that is a representation of the lungs on that small part of the body. Right? This is the idea of microsystems acupuncture. So when we're needling a point that has a target that has its target somewhere else. So for example, if we're needling Lingu and we're using it for head pain, all we're doing is we're choosing Lingu because Lingu is a point that represents the head, right? So it's just a distal point needled somewhere else, or a local point rather needled somewhere else. So instead of doing a local point here, we're doing a local point here. Get the idea? That's something to keep in your head. So this idea is not unique to domed acupuncture. I should say that right out loud. And so to illustrate this idea, I brought you a concept that's taken from the internal martial art of Taiji Chuan, of Tai Chi, some people pronounce it, but it's Taiji. This is a concept that we use in push hands practice, which is a type of partner-based practice in Tai Chi. And we can see, according to the Taiji classics, the body has 3 sections: the upper section, the middle section, and the lower section. The upper section are the upper limbs, the middle section is the trunk, and the lower section are the lower limbs. And each section can be divided into 3 parts: a root, a center, and a tip, like the tip of a twig, sort of like the end of a branch. So the upper section, which in general is the tip or the branch of the body, is the upper limb. The root is the shoulder, the center is the elbow, and the tip is the hand. Get the idea? So the root is here, the center is here, and the tip is out here. The middle section of the body, the root is the lower abdomen, described in the Taiji classics as the dantian, but it's really the lower abdomen. The center is the chest and sort of upper abdomen, and the tip is the head. On the leg, the lower section of the body, the tip is the foot, the root is the hip, and the center is the knee. And this goes along with the basic ideas in TCM of how we see anatomy in yin-yang terms, right? So the yin region, the yin being proximal or yin being inferior on the trunk, is the root, and the yang being most distal or yang being most superior is the tip. Now, what we'll see is this beautiful symmetry that each of the sections of the body has a root, center, and the tip. And what the Taiji classics say, which Chinese medicine also concurs with, is that these areas have a sympathetic resonance with one another. So the shoulder and the lower abdomen and the hip all resonate with one another. The elbow, the sort of middle abdomen, and the knee resonate, and the hand, foot, and the head resonate. So here we have this diagram that's then created, where we can see here, the foot goes to head, knee goes to this area of around the navel, hip goes to the lower region of the genitals. Likewise, the hand goes to the head, elbow goes to the navel, and shoulder goes to the lower area of the trunk. Now, one of the things we also know is that that yin and yang mutually transform into one another. When something is as yin as it can be, it turns into yang, and vice versa. Also, we know that here, this yang goes with yang, goes with yang. That in the 5th chapter of the Suan, it says the superior acupuncturist treats yang from yin and yin from yang, right from left and left from right. So if we're using the yang area of the body to treat the yang area of the body, it's not so exciting, not so different, not so sexy. So we need to flip things around a little. So we can invert the image. So now we can use the yin area of the lower limb or the yin area of the upper limb to map to the yang area of the head, where the knee, the elbow, and the navel are still this area of the pivot points. And here now we have the foot or the yang area of the lower limb, and the yang area of the upper limb, the hand, to map to the yin area of the trunk, right? So this is yang treats yin, yang treats yin, yang, yin treats yang, yin treats yang. So because these areas have a sympathetic resonance, moving qi and blood in one of these areas moves qi and blood in all those related areas. So when we move qi and blood in the hand, for example, at a point like Lingu, we're also moving potentially qi and blood in the head. Does everyone get this idea? So in this case, Lingu is a local point because Lingu does nothing more than represent the head in a different area of the body from where the head is. So a distal point is a local point needled somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So let's just chew on that idea, this idea of how the body can map to itself, and we'll go on to the next short case. Well, actually, we'll do a point before we do the next short case study. So we've seen Lingu as a point on the hand to map to the head. Let's look at some points on the feet that map to the head. One of my favorite points for headache on the foot is this point called Menjin, which means gate of metal. Menjin is on the dorsum of the foot, Tutsun proximal to the web margin of the second and third toes. So we'll look at the diagram real quick. So it's located in this space between the second and third toes, a little bit further up. This point is overlapping with stomach 43. The point is especially effective for migraine. The two basic areas that this point targets is the area of the head and the area of the lower abdomen. So we'll see some of the indications being related to abdominal pain, dysentery, diarrhea. This is also honestly one of my favorite points for menstrual cramps. So those of you who treat a lot of female patients, this one is one to keep in your back pocket for when you have menstrual cramping. However, it is very effective for head pain. This point is on the stomach channel, so it's more effective for points for headache along the frontal aspect, right, along the Yang-Ming distribution. In my opinion, in my experience, it's usually not as effective for headaches that are more on the lateral distribution along the Xiaoyang channels. So it's especially effective for migraine. It can be bled if there are small blood vessels there, and we'll talk a little bit more about bloodletting closer to the end of the talk. And this is also very effective if we have, for example, menstrual migraines, where the woman has concurrent menstrual cramps, and also then has, in addition to menstrual cramps, has headache. The depth of insertion of Meнгene, typically about a half cun is adequate. You can go fairly deeply. You can go, I would say, about a half cun to 1 cun would be appropriate for Mengene. So the point can be needled fairly deeply. It's usually quite comfortable on insertion, so it's not necessarily a problem. At this point, I'd like to take an opportunity to just sort of look at another really small question. That's not such a small question. Is what exactly is an acupuncture point, or what is the nature of an acupuncture point? Historically, we see that when we're looking at descriptions from the early medical classics of point locations, it's not nearly as detailed as in modern textbooks. Modern textbook definitions spend a lot more time looking at detailed anatomical landmarks using anatomical terms and very detailed measurements. This is, in my opinion, more of a function of the interaction of Western medicine with Chinese medicine than something that is unique to Chinese medicine by itself. If we can see, there's a couple of quotes here from people who I admire highly. The first quote on this page is from Dr. Wang Jui and Jason Robertson. And this is from Dr. Wang. The actual location of any point is not necessarily where the point is located by techniques of proportional measurement. Rather, the point is the place where one can best get the qi and facilitate the arrival of qi. It is not fixed. So this is talking about the idea that points are actually not necessarily exactly where the textbook says it is. Okay. Let's go on to the next quote. This is from Shudo Denmei. And Shudo Denmei, in my opinion, is an acupuncture rock star. He's one of my acupuncture heroes, I would say. He says acupuncture points are hard to locate on healthy individuals. However, when qi stagnates or pathological qi invades from the outside, the point becomes depressed or protrudes. Qi, which is invisible, is thus transformed into a quality that can be palpated and distinguished. So, see exactly what he's saying there. Qi, which is invisible, is transformed into a quality that we can palpate. So we can't feel wind, we can't feel heat, we can't feel some other aspect of qi, but we can feel changes in the tissue that represent it. So when I'm feeling hot on the body, I'm not necessarily feeling heat as a pathogen, but rather I'm feeling the body's response, that there's heat then present in the tissue that I can actually touch with my hands. Dampness by itself, I can't see or I can't touch, but I can touch on the body when the point becomes squishy or becomes sort of soft and puffy at the same time, which is feeling dampness at a point. So then we see exactly what Shudo means. It's qi, which is invisible, is thus transformed into a quality that can be palpated and distinguished. This is what is known as an active point, which serves as both a point for diagnosis as well as treatment. The reason I bring this up is because many times in the Dong literature, for those of you who have seen some of Master Dong's acupuncture before, we'll see sometimes in acupuncture texts, we can all see where my little arrow is, where they'll say that this is Meнгene 66.05. And then just below it, here is stomach 43. Oh, you can't see my arrow. I'm sorry. If you can't see the arrow, then what sometimes people are told is that, there we go, is that, can I move that arrow?
Yeah.
I can move that arrow, okay. So that would be Meнгene 66.05, and then right below it there would be stomach 43. Or in some books we'll see that that point there is 66.04, or a point called Borju, and just below it, literally millimeters away, is where we would find liver 3. In my opinion, this is not a very helpful nor a very accurate way of discussing points. Acupuncture points are living and moving entities, where if points are mere millimeters away and they share indications, in my opinion, they are identical points. So here, stomach 43 and Meнгene are the same point. I'll give you a brief clinical example. About a month or a half ago, I was out teaching at OCOM, and we had a patient who had menstrual cramps. And the menstrual cramps patient was being needled with Meнгene. And the student had needled Mengene, and there wasn't real change in the menstrual cramps. And all we did was, as a supervisor, I came in and I palpated the area around stomach 43. And we found a point that was just a little further down from where the needle was, that was tender. And when we inserted the needle again at the tender spot, immediately, like that, the menstrual cramps changed and they lightened, became much different. So I'm going to suggest that what we really need to do when we're looking for points is not get hung up on the idea that this is Mengene and this is stomach 43. It's ridiculous. They're the same point. If they're within millimeters, they are the same point. And what we have to do is we have to find what in Japanese acupuncture we call the ikitatsubo, the living acupuncture point, or the live or active point. So whenever you're, and this is my personal approach to Dong's acupuncture, when we're looking for points, we need to be palpating. For pain, oftentimes we'll find a point that is painful as a response. So for a headache, we'll oftentimes find a point that is painful, that is then the appropriate point for needling. If we're treating primarily a case of vacuity or qi or blood insufficiency, then we may find a point that is cold or depressed or sort of hollow under the fingertips. But we're always going to try to find a point that is somehow telling us that it needs to be needled. Don't just needle the point based on the measurement. Does everyone understand that idea? I want you to make sure that you go home with that concept. It's really very important. Okay. Another brief description here before we go on. We had a question about the point functions. In Master Dong's original text that he wrote himself in 1973, the only thing he gave us were indications. The truth is that in acupuncture literature, up until very recently, really the last couple of decades, there were no indications that were standardly associated with acupuncture points. To some extent, this is the herbalization of acupuncture. This is a double-edged sword, like most things. In some cases, it's a useful construct to hold in mind, and sometimes it's not so useful. However, many of the authors who are writing about Dong's acupuncture in Taiwan are starting to associate functions with each of the points. So this goes back to, I think it was Michael's question before. I think it was Michael asked the question. So here we're adding in functions, and these functions I've translated from the Taiwanese medical literature. And the terminology that I use is the Weissman terminology.
Okay.
As someone who speaks Asian languages, I think that Weissman terminology is one of the best.
Hi, Albert, Matthew. It's time, but I thought this was really very good as an intro if you're not familiar with Master Dong. I don't know. Anyone else familiar? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I like this guy. He was really clear, and he's a big Master Dong nerd. Sounds like so.
Yeah, it is very cool. So we'll have to catch up. But yeah, I'm going to try this year to get Dr. Cord, and he's really good too. I've taken one of his CEUs with Master Dong. It's quite clear. All right, everyone.
Okay, awesome.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys. I'll see you later. Take care.
See you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Okay.